So has it started? Hi, hello Russell, how are you doing today?
Hi, Iga, fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So this is a follow-up to the session we had the last time where we discussed generally our business, our customer base, and also the industries where we work in. And as a follow-up, we wanted to spend some time on some of the common terminologies we use when we talk about business transformation, which is our core competence, actually. So to start with, Russell, I've heard even since the beginning of my time at BP Experts, I heard the slogan, business transformation is a capability and not a project. So maybe you can just elaborate on that first for us, what that
Uh,
means.
yes, and actually, now that we're talking, I I really have a um the idea that I talked about the spotlight that I've drafted for the newsletter, and here I actually go into this topic. So let's say this, because we are talking about BP experts, and when you say slogan, it's about how do we communicate to the market, and what is actually behind it. And maybe if I just share my screen, I'll just walk you through some of the points that I noted just down. Yeah, and I'll just explain because there's two diagrams in there that could be quite interesting to actually put it in context. And then we go to the website and I'll walk you
Mhm.
through how we've positioned it. So in the last 10 years, we're coming up to 10 years now at BP Experts. We've constantly been trying to gain the trust of new customers. And I checked out our marketing and sales folders, and I found that we have way over 100 companies that we have proposed to. So not just have talked to, but really kind of like put down some kind of like a pitch, a presentation, whatever. And there's way over 100 customers there that we have proposed to. And from these over 100, over 50 of them, we have managed to get a deal. So somehow we have communicated in a way that they said that you have something we want to have, we're willing to sign a contract and go into some kind of like a business relation with you. And what is very important here is that all our communication and the companies we typically talk to, they are um, they are definitely not just single contacts. Networking. I know you from before, and I just need one resource. But typically, they're all cases where the customer talks about a partnership. He talks about a project. He wants to buy services from BP experts. He doesn't want to say, Russell, I know you from before. I want to have you to work for me. But really, talking about a substance matter.
Yeah.
And when we talk to the when we talk to the prospects, we have to differentiate ourselves from the competitors. So here it really is about that the whole communication on our website, the whole offering we have, down to what we then really deliver and build up as a success story, has to be in this value wedge. So it has to be something where there is, on the one side, from a prospect perspective, there is a need. Yeah, there is something like I need it. I have a pain point. I need a solution here, but it's something which the competitor doesn't offer. Because as soon as I'm in this level where I'm competing on value parity, I have an issue. Because typically I will always be more expensive than the small ones, and I will not be big enough to serve to reach up to the offering that, say, something like an Accenture has, a big company. Yeah, because we're a small company in the middle. We're an expert, so we have this expertise. So in order to really fit this, to really get in there, we have to, of course, then first of all, on a high level, draw the attention to us, and have to be, of course, aware that there is a very big competition on this market. So when I say BPM and business transformation are the key topics that we sell services around, yeah, it's a big topic. Yeah, it's not small, and there's different aspects to it, from implementing software, from buying tools down to pure management consulting. We also have a huge competition. So as I said, we have the big consulting companies like Accenture with its 600,000 employees, Ernst Young, Deloitte, KPMG, they claim to offer what we offer, and of course, additionally, much, much more. They're a one-stop shop for anything you want to have. You have the tool providers, so something like even a GB Tech or an Intellior that sell the tools to do BPM. They also sell the knowledge of the methodology and consulting. So they are actually partners, but they are also definitely competitors. And a lot of, say, Googling and companies that are looking for information will also land on their sites. And then not to talk about the, as it myriads, loads and loads and loads of little consulting companies that somehow offer process and IT expertise or change management or whatever. So we have to have an offering that differs ourselves clearly from the competitors and really meets the needs and the pains of these prospects. So here we come down to the slogans. So the slogans with business transformation is a capability, not a project, clearly indicates something where we say we do not just want to sell you a project, we want to coach you, advise you in being able to help yourself to do things better. Why? Because we believe transformation is nothing that you just start and then finish within a couple of years, but it's something that you have to embed in the fabric of your organization. It has to be a capability. You have to be capable in your organization, with your roles, with your processes, with your tools, with your content, with your methodology, to be able to constantly adapt to the requirements from the market. That's why we say business transformation is a capability, not a project. That serves the way we offer our services. We are not 600,000 people. We're only 35, 40 people. And here we really clearly advise people, we coach people, we engage in projects over a certain period of time to be able to then leave again and let the customer then move on by himself. So this capability is not a project also fits to our claim that we care, we actually deliver. We do engage with customers. We put ourselves in the shoes, in the perspective of the customer. We engage in the teams in order to deliver, but we also want to transfer knowledge and capabilities to the customer so he can then build up then a much bigger organization. And there is this kind of like leverage there for him to be able to move forward by himself.
Yeah, Russell, just thanks for the clarification. I just have one question or maybe a statement to the business transformation is a capability, not a project. So we basically enable companies to transform, right? To improve, to actually see through their business transformation effort, but not only as an enabler, but we equip them with the capability to actually see it through even when we're gone. Right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's not like that you come from outside and you kind of like transform the company. We see ourselves as the enablers and the people to build and coach and advise the customer to build up his own capabilities. And here, when we're thinking about this process idea behind it, this is why on the market, typically the most competitors, the big competitors, they are very often, well, they say they're management consulting companies, but typically they're seen as system integrators. So clearly here, the big part of their business model is implementing IT. And through implementing IT, they optimize processes by automation, and they also transform the way people work, so they also impact the processes. We do not see that as the right approach. And actually, even the big Accentures and so think this is not the right approach. Even SAP says you have to go processes first. And Accenture will say this as well. But the business model behind it, the revenue they do, still sticks to 80% to the actual implementation of big systems like ERP systems or CRM systems, whatever. Now, we clearly want to differentiate ourselves from these system integrators. This is why the claim to be a business integrator is exactly something to differentiate ourselves and to say, what are we focusing on? We focus on processes, and here again, to differentiate ourselves from the classical process management tools and providers and methodologies, we think end-to-end. So one of the big paradigms that has been understood by the business is that you want to operationalize strategy. If you want to really transform your company, You shouldn't get lost in the details of a function, but you need to think big. You need to think about how end to end you have to streamline your organization and your processes in order to achieve maybe a different goal, yeah, or serve a different business model. And this is why, and this is where in transforming, a lot of the issues happen because people will look into their own department, into their own details, and they will optimize and automate, but they won't think about the big picture. And they have then, the business is not integrated. So things are optimized disjunct from each other and not integrated. And here as a business integrator, we support the capabilities of transformation, and we really lay a focus in our methodologies, in our content, and the way we address this from an advisory perspective, that we integrate the business, that we manage this in an integrated form, that we ensure that business and IT understand each other. We ensure that management and operations understand each other. We ensure that finances, purchasers, production guys, and quality guys, that these people understand each other, work together as one. This is why, for us, coming from an end-to-end view, on believing that this is actually the core aspect to look at in business transformation, to make people have one view on things, how they should go, one common goal, alignment throughout all departments, and based on this, then collaborate together in your day-to-day working. That this is the key asset that we, with our content methodologies, etc., we actually then work against. So the last two ones, the better processes for all and boost your business transformation. These come more from the aspect that we do not just, and this is also something where I think we do differentiate ourselves from other people on the market, is that we are very open and transparent on the knowledge that we have. So we have built up business flows from a reference process content perspective. Here we have free trials where people can really dig into it. I just had a pitch with Boston Consulting Group, gave them the access, gave them a couple of days time to actually stroll through it, to check it, to see if it from a content perspective fits their whatever oil and gas company they had in Texas. They said, doesn't quite fit, so that's fine. Yeah, but we are very transparent about what we offer. And we do this because we are confident that it's not just so easy copyable. We sell our content to other consulting partners like 10th Pin, which are experts in SAP in pharmaceutical clinical trial areas, which is fantastic. And we sell the content to them because we know that the content in itself, from an intellectual property perspective, from applying it, that they will be able to do their projects with it, but they won't be able to compete against us in actually presenting and providing such a content and such a methodology with such kind of like thought into actually enabling companies to develop it for their own sake. So better processes for all is the claim that with the reference models and architecture, we provide something that out of the box customers can use, even if they don't engage with us in a consulting, like 10th Pin, like First Alpine, that just said, oh, I need a good starting point for content, architecture, and conventions, and they buy the content. And with this, you boost your business transformation. So there are initiatives, SAP initiatives like at First Alpine. They need to start with process workshops fast, 10th Pin exactly the same. They need to boost their transformation. With the better processes, we give them a head start in engaging in their transformation by providing this clear differentiator. And here, one of these key aspects taken up in these two slogans.
Good, great.
Now, I just want to cover this one aspect on saying that is this relevant? So when we say, yeah, okay, you're a dreamer, whatever, is this really something that people ask? Not just the numbers of people, companies we've been talking to and the deals we've done, but there are also a lot of surveys on the market where we know that, of course, there is a lot of development around, digital disruption and COVID and homework, home office stuff. All these topics are clear that there is a lot of development on the market, but what I think is quite nice about this survey is actually that they say, what are the challenges? So where are the pain points where if we can address them differently than the competitors, that clearly they are in this value wedge. And here, I just wrote them out, the ones that I think are quite nice and really fit to us is linking processes with strategy. Yeah. So how do you actually go about ensuring that the strategy is translated into processes? Our end-to-end architecture and processes that we then also link with objectives or strategic capabilities or business drivers, where we even have, a methodology and content, clearly address exactly this topic. Yeah. Then we have uh, overcome resistance. We have sustaining the change. So here, I think a lot of around the skills of our people that are kind of like dealing with this business perspective of how to align, get a common understanding of where you want to go, and following through on this throughout the transformation is definitely one of the clear strengths, where we show that you don't just do a design, but you actually then follow through to the implementation. And lack of business and IT alignment, as already mentioned, is also one of these big topics where we don't just kind of like set it up high level, but we then actually define and decline during the transformation. We set up a governance structure. We've proven that we can then take this, for example, from an end-to-end design to an end-to-end testing to an end-to-end rollout. That we then, through the whole life cycle of transformation, know how to actually keep up this process-driven perspective and always be able to link back causally to the to strategic objectives. And this last point, ensure customer centricity, is actually more on a content level. I'm talking to a lot of customers, and I think that although people are engaged in something like HANA projects, most of our customers we work with really are in a business where the key for them to differentiate themselves from their competitors is actually being able to adapt faster to the requirements of customers. So if it's Siegwerk that actually develop custom specific paints, Lohmann bonding, custom specific bonding solutions based on tapes, or if it's Yaskawa that does or Phoenix Contact that actually does an engineering kind of like project in order to win a deal for some kind of like a solution in an automotive environment. Yeah, they all do not live off a commodity like the robot or the paint, but they all live off having a very clear process and integration with the kind of like requirements of the customer, and being able to serve these customers clearly with the quality and the time and whatever the cost that the customer requires here. So it's not commodity business, and it's all about streamlining your core competence on developing the products more than actually then delivering the product, producing and delivering the product. Yeah, and this is very much disruptive. It's very much requires very many departments working hand in hand in order to service this. And this is where the whole transformation in the market is also supported by our way of thinking, end-to-end, process-driven, etc.
Yeah. So Russell, we've heard about some of the key slogans that we use when we talk about how we want to be seen and how we are seen by our customers. Here, business transformation, their capability, not a project. We care, we act, deliver. We've also talked about some of the general concerns of customers, right? Like topics, for example, when they're doing business transformation, one of the challenges is linking strategy to the two processes, right? And also keeping a synchronicity between IT and business. So maybe we can take some time and dive into looking at the business transformation life cycle. So how do we actually we're still sticking with the terminology. So what are some of the key terminologies that we use when working with customers, meaning from the inception of going from your business transformation strategy through to your processes, and then through to implementation of solutions, and then also monitoring the performance of these. Yeah. So I will share my screen and then just open up the website here. A link will be provided here, where we have here again clearly saying we see ourselves as business integrators. We care, we act, deliver, and we have here the so-called business transformation lifecycle and the consulting offerings around that. So maybe Russell, you can just give us some insights on these stages here, what they're defined as, and how they fit into the overall our overall message and the way we work with customers.
Yeah, so I think if you look on the market and look around, typically you always have these life cycles coming from various different methodologies. You know, the classical BPM, business process management, continuous improvements cycle, or if it's lean, they always have these DMAC cycles. They always have a certain kind of like approach where you say that you need a certain kind of like a life cycle. It's a continuous process that you have to engage in, which we completely agree with. What I think we have put down here is that when talking about customers saying, oh, we need to think business transformation more big, we need to think it more on a global level of our organization. Typically, they will have in-house already a lot of initiatives up and running. That have some sort of a methodology and some sort of a life cycle in mind. Yeah, so if it's just continuous improvement of processes in production or Lean Six Sigma, they will already be acting like this. The perspective of the business transformation we pull up here is more that we are thinking on a global level of a big complex organization. And here, what we typically find is that there are a lot of silos, departmental silos established, which in itself will all maybe optimize themselves, but they need to be coordinated more on a global level. And to establish this is why on the left-hand side there is one of these core, let's say, tasks that we typically engage in to initiate these kind of like this transformation capability in a company, is to then clarify the business architecture and the ownership. So when you go into our business flows and you see the end-to-end domains, then the first understanding we have to create is actually what does end-to-end mean, and then how do I define it, and how does this actually reflect my specific way of working. Yeah, so I'm in a certain kind of like an industry. How do I even define the domains, and what purpose do they serve? And the main purpose they serve is to, first of all, decompose the complex, of course, business, but also to say kind of to allow for defining an end-to-end ownership. And here you typically have then already the first discussions on, okay, so what do we need to have as a business architecture if we set it up from an end-to-end perspective? Which domains do we require? And in the context of what we want to achieve, how do I define this ownership? Yeah, so on which level, what is the task of an owner, an end-to-end domain owner? So it is a lot about saying you cannot change if you do not take ownership and you really start thinking about the architecture, your target architecture of your operations, based on what business models do you have and what strategy do you follow, where do you want to be in 5 years? And on these requirements, then you enter this journey on defining the business architecture and the ownership. And only then do you have actually the basic structure and the mandate and people to talk to actually then dive into the core operating models and business drivers. Now, it says operating models here. If you transfer this or translate this into the process language that we use and then introduce to the customers, then the operating models are represented by the end-to-end scenarios of the domains. Mm-hmm. And the business drivers are a more operative level of focus objectives for the key objectives they want to achieve over the next which will then support their strategy. So this could be so customer excellence, or excellent customer services. So it doesn't have to be necessarily defined by a KPI, but it clearly is then something where they say this is something we need to achieve in order to fulfill our strategy. So it's more tangible than the actual kind of like typical high-level strategies, and it's something that you can directly link and bring in context to the business scenarios. So here it is really reflecting the business model in operating models, and also breaking down the strategy and linking it to the operating models to say, this is what we want to achieve, and the processes we need to be able to serve this, provide a customer with a product or whatever we do as a business model. This is the actual kind of like the operating models, the processes that we need in order to serve end to end our customers. And then, and that is something that is really the starting point. This framework is key, and this framework, establishing this, is for a lot of customers, they've heard of it. They seem it resonates with them. It's nothing that they haven't read about on Google or in any kind of literature, but really, how do you actually make this happen? Yeah, in a time frame, without too many discussions. And this is where we come with a very clear architecture and content, predefined content, where in the industries we typically move, we really get a buy-in. We get a buy-in from C-level down to departmental heads. We can go into detailed discussions with the people that have modeled before or haven't modeled before, or haven't done it in different done it with balanced scorecards. And we've always been able to convince the customers that this framework is key in order to create transparency and alignment, in order for them to move forward in really kind of like getting things changed, transformed, and implemented. Yeah, and that is kind of like really the key fundament of setting up this framework. And then only then you should then go down a level deeper. And this is where we say the specific value drivers with which maybe SAP functionalities can we kind of like then drive certain competitiveness, and really go into the detailed to be design of what you want to implement. To be design from our perspective is always in looking at the changes that are inflicted to the organization, to the people, and of course to the system. So to be designed is of course always then, let's say, the product backlog on system items to be IT items to be implemented, but it is also a clear identification and defining of all the elements where roles and procedures and people will be impacted and also need to be, let's say, trained and transformed. Yeah. So, and I think that the business transformation just looks like one box here, and you could say, isn't everything the business transformation? I picked out the business transformation as one block here because in itself, I think people, it has its own complexity. So in this very high level map, which we of course have much more detailed, defined in order to engage properly with programs and projects at customer side, this is just as a kind of like a high level helicopter view on the key elements. The business transformation in itself has its own complexity. So it is not as trivial and simple to just go and say, we have a design and let's go and implement it. And then I come out of a box 2 weeks later, and things have been implemented technically, and the organization has been transformed. They've been trained and it's done. It doesn't work like that. And here you have to see that in order to take maybe even a very clearly defined design, that if implementing this and rolling it out through a global organization, which can take 5 to 7 or 10 years, that even during this time, your design has to constantly be checked and adapted. the change request management process, and also the organization changes. Maybe in the meantime, you then acquire a company, you sell a company. So always you have a moving target. And a lot of the times the design it isn't so detailed that not along the line you have to then also from a technical perspective act and be flexible. So here this idea of agility comes into place, which is one aspect, but also the whole aspect of managing a template. So actually then taking a design and then taking elements of it into a backlog, implementing them, and then setting up a core template that is then rolled out. And this whole life cycle of transformation over templates that are then have versions and releases across the global organization is something that we have proven track record at Merck and other companies, and really is in itself, let's say, as complex as all the 5 elements that you see here before itself. Yeah, so that's why I think it's very legit to have business transformation in itself as one placeholder here. And underneath this, you have a whole big story of from also again from our side, templates and approaches and methodologies, how to manage this in a global in enterprise and organization.
And Russell, going back to what we discussed when you presented the last when you discussed the last points, where you said one of the challenges from that SAP survey questionnaire was that how to link strategy with processes, right? And that's what we try to do with the business drivers and operating models here, right?
Yeah.
So looking at the challenge of aligning IT with actually the business processes and goals. That's then the whole value driver key design part, right? So by the time we get to what we call here the business transformation or implementation, these points are already defined, and with the constant iteration, like you said, the design is always amended, and there's always clarity on where exactly do we want to go, how we're going to get there, and how do we know when we've got there, right?
Yeah, and as I mentioned, these other points I mentioned, overcome resistance and ensure sustaining change. This is where, as I said, in the business transformation, this is when a lot of strategic initiatives, they kind of like go so far, they even go to a B design, but really making it happen. This is where you have to, over maybe a long period of time, our expanding universe picture is over a long time, the scope of people getting involved in this transformation, it gets bigger and bigger. And you at any time down the line of maybe a couple of years later, you still need to be able to have a clear transparency on what actually did you design? What is actually, what was actually driving your business? And if it has changed your business drivers and your operating models change, you have to have a model in place that you can adapt, because it doesn't make sense 5 years down the line to sustain, implement any kind of like changes and processes and IT systems if the operating model isn't valid anymore. So even in this circle you see here, in the business transformation that is very complex, you're not allowed to come to a standstill. A standstill in principally implementing and transforming, but also not in questioning and having a very structured governance that say, you know what, this operating model doesn't make sense anymore. We have to adjust the scope. We have to adjust the design. We have to adjust what we've actually rolling out, and maybe we even have to do a retrofit on what we have already rolled out. And governing this over a big organization, over a long time, with a lot of people kind of like coming in and coming out of the organization, requires a sustainable methodology and tools to manage this. And this is something I think this is where we are really, really good at. That's something we claim we've done. And because we focus on it as a key value, is something that in our knowledge and in something that we have prepared, we are capable of selling it and providing it to other customers. Yeah, maybe other customers, our competitors have done it by chance, but they don't see it as their key value. They don't kind of like have documented it, as created templates based on it, created kind of like template content based on it to use it in projects. This is exactly what we've done. We think about these topics day and night. and we think about how we can take the lessons learned and the experience that we have and bring it into a form that we can accelerate these kind of like initiatives with other customers. That's kind of like the big topic we are here. Just to finish off the last block, so we can move forward. So the performance controls and monitoring. Now, there is a lot of hype around process mining as a topic, but we also have another aspect here that I think is very important. A lot of our customers, of course, are in somehow in a regulated environment. This could be pharmaceuticals with GXP, but it also is, for example, companies like NTT that have a lot of auditors coming in from an ISO perspective. Their customers want them to be compliant. So when you say performance controls and monitoring, it's not just about setting up some kind of like tools to say, am I producing faster? Am I making more revenue? The typical kind of like KPIs from a commercial perspective, but also in generally ensuring that you are your business is running according to the standards that you have defined from an excellence perspective, but also compliant to whatever framework of rules you have to comply with, internal or external. And here we have a lot of expertise, first of all, in setting up these governance solutions and the methodologies like risk management systems, controls, internal control systems. Also, we have experience in the dedicated hands-on monitoring, like with process mining. So here, again, there are different facets depending on which perspective you have, but it's always very important that we take into consideration that actually when you start implementing processes, that you also have to think about what controls and monitoring and performance indicating environments you set up, and that they have to work hand in hand, also from a role and ownership perspective, with the whole transformation setup. So that's then the last point where we also have I think great knowledge and methodologies, and also a lot of implementation experience from a tool perspective that also is something that differentiates us in looking at all the aspects on the market, that we can offer this out of one hand.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, thanks, Russell, for the overview. I think here, just wrapping up that we've discussed the some of the key terminologies we use when we kind of communicate to our customers our philosophy on business transformation, right? And you see these steps here; these are all accompanied by specific artifacts. For example, here with the process architecture, we have our modeling conventions. We have our business drivers as part of our business flows process repository, operating model, end-to-end scenarios. And actually, we have these enablers, right, which we use when we actually go into business transformation projects. So this session that we have is basically clarifying some of these general terminologies. There will be more to come on each individual stage here, or each individual call this a bucket, call this a stage here, where we really dive deeper into and say, okay, so what does a business driver look like? How is it defined? What are these operating models? How do we model that? How do we design them? And also topics like value drivers. So this is just kind of the initial session to give you an introduction of these terminologies as a starting point for really diving deeper into it in the next sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Good. So any points, Russell, that you'd like to add, like as a final closure here?
No, I think that we managed to get through the cycle. I think we can always kind of like think about, say, next sessions to maybe drill down. What we could do is that to give a bit more. This is just really pure introductory. That maybe the next time we have the pitch deck, we have ARIS, the business flows, that we maybe even use that as the opportunity to say, okay, how do these accelerators look like in ARIS, or or in business flows? What do we really provide there? Just to give some kind of like hands-on feeling for what we are working with when we talk about, especially these 3 points: business architecture, ownership drivers, value drivers. That we could walk through them. I think in the context of business transformation, I think we should go through this, the expanding universe model to just kind of like give a bit more of a feeling for how complex this actually gets. And then in that context, also pick up the process-driven SAP methodology, where we can then also go through how we offer something more tangible than just a project plan, and how we kind of like think about how, as a business integrator, or how you can help customers establish this capability on their side. That's what we should do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be the next session. So thank you, Russell, for the insights, and I'll speak to you next time. Yeah.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.